And got it. Cool. I am Scott Weinberg, and this is People Power TV. And we are talking with Denise Tran today, who is our social media manager, communications director, and like her bio says, the Jane of all trades, doing a whole bunch of stuff to help us make this whole ship work and get started and go somewhere. And it's been a wild journey so far, and you've been on it for I think it's 3 months now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, how time has flown.
Indeed. So welcome to our first podcast interview. And what we're doing is really just getting an idea of who everyone is on the team, what they're doing, their relationship to this, background that relates to it. And, we talked a little bit earlier about some of the stuff, or just, I guess, texted a little bit earlier about some of the stuff we could talk about. And I just wanted to find out, first of all, who is Denise? And what brought you to this moment in your life, your background, your passions, your interests, and then how you got to here and where you are. Where are you?
Hi, doing all right. Thank you so much for making the time and space to reconnect. Appreciate it.
I know.
So one of the first things that come to my mind when we talk about identity for me is that I'm a first generation American. My parents came from Vietnam. My mom and I are literally byproducts of the Vietnam War. She was half white, and so I'm a quarter. And what first generation means to me in my own personal story is that I was brought up with the fear mindset. So my parents were like, don't go outside, don't stick out, don't speak out. And what follows from the fear mindset is the scarcity mindset, being told that at any moment we could go homeless, or that this is our last meal, so enjoy it because we don't know if we're going to have the next, or opening the fridge when you're really hungry and seeing an empty fridge. And so that really kind of just unconsciously gave me the message that you are not worthy, you are not enough. And that, I think, has kept me operating at this very low wavelength, but now I'm tapping into this new energy that I'm really excited to share with you later on. But yeah, I grew up in LA and mostly poured myself into academics. That's all I really could do. My dad wasn't allowing me to play sports or to really have friends. They were just like education, education, education. And that was because they saw me as their retirement plan. So being raised in a Western culture, but under an Eastern roof, there was a lot of reconciliation and deconstruction of just this kind of brainwashing that I had to go through. I always felt like an outsider, whether it was because of my ethnicity, not feeling American enough, or not feeling Asian enough, or even if it was just my socioeconomical status, just like feeling like, wow, I grew up really poor and y'all had all these privileges, and I can't really say that out loud. I was the first to graduate college in my entire family, Scott. And I knew that I had to leave LA to finally start my life, away from this LA lifestyle that I was doomed or destined to have if I stayed there, or my parents' oppressive influence. I just needed to have a fresh start. And it was really a double-edged sword, having to leave my family, because I did get this sense of freedom, but it was also this guilt that hung over me that I could no longer, support my family or, be there for them. And that's how.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
So that's how I found myself in Lake Tahoe. Really, truly grew up under a rock. Thank you, Mom and Dad, because I thought Lake Tahoe was just a smaller LA. I thought the whole world was just a different LA. So seeing nature, living in it, mountains, trees, like just stepping outside and immediately finding yourself in nature was such a privilege for me, to really just take a step back away from that hustle and bustle, that grinding mindset that LA can put on you, and like slowing down my nervous system. That was like a really big first catalyst for me. My first job out of college, my real first job out of college, was at the Tahoe Science Center, operating under UC Davis, doing research on Lake Tahoe. And it was a real leap of faith moving up there because I barely heard of it. It was a test of my resiliency as I endured my first snowy winter for the first time, right? LA girl, I had never seen snow before. And although I still felt like I didn't belong in certain circumstances, I felt received by the community. You know, they were the ones that taught me about snow tires, chains, how snow works. Like, you got to shovel your car. And they gave me winter clothes because I didn't have a jacket. I was in LA. And they gave me a free place to live. I came up with $28 to my name. So just having a roof over my head and not having to worry about rent helped me, you know, save up a little bit, and get my life started. And there was just so much more that the community gave me. And so when my contract was up with the Science Center, I decided to stay in the area and work with the Parks Foundation. They're one of my clients still to this day, just to really give back to the community that gave to me.
Amazing, amazing. I mean, I'm just hearing it, and it's like I'm in a men's group, and it's uncanny how when really honest, heartfelt sharing happens, I usually find so much in each of the shares that's about me. And so there's a little bit of like a moment where I'm just recognizing that even though I'm, you know, fifth generation Canadian, that the trauma of not enough, that 3 generations ago, because of the Great Depression and because of the history in the family of coming from Northern Europe, and it's almost everybody has 1 or 2 generations back to some reboot, some loss, some dysfunction, like our civilizations, you know, huge flourishing, and it does really well, and then it uses up all the resources and collapses. And that's like intergenerational and microcosm forever. That, you know, so I've got this wounding in my field. I had to leave home with a really sound and safe place in Montreal, 3 generations into my mother, decent stability. She grew up in the 50s with like a really affluent family. She has this not enough thing still pervading, and so shadow layer of just really reckoning with how to get to peace. She's getting to peace right now, but she put herself in a place where she could really be financially safe, you know, with my dad, but even more so with her current partner, her current husband, and it still operates there. It's softening now. For the first time in her life, I really feel her just being like, oh, I'm good, I'm okay. It's actually about being happy and family, which she's always been about. But the edge of just all sorts of stuff that makes that nervousness and that anxiety. So I had to leave to reset myself, and the guilt and the feelings and the not being understood, and who really gets this, and how do I fit in with privilege, but not being able to understand that I'm still in the middle of this multi-generational mess, and to find a place where I could, be in nature, reset, find that quietness, still doing it now, like in this process of still dismantling the low-level anxiety that I'll be talking about with the team later, that pervades me to put myself in conditions of always being at risk as an entrepreneur, always overdoing it and putting myself as a give beyond my own capacity, right to the edge. And just like, not even the question of oxygen mask and emergency, but just really to be in a sweet spot to create from, to be creative, to be. So I'm curious to hear what's opening for you in this, you know, new inspiration, this new self-expression that sounds like is taking shape. And it's so beautiful to hear that a community like Tahoe, and I get the feeling that it's like this in a lot of smaller town USA, it's got this. Just so grateful for someone to show up and be part of the community.
Yeah, like we're here for each other. And like you bring up such a great point. Like another thing I identify with is that I am a cycle breaker. And so are you. And so is People Power TV.
Exactly. Yeah, as a meta exercise, and I saw it yesterday with the crew in Topanga, just people being like coming in with a little bit of disbelief and doubt and wondering like, oh, is this more of the same? And I'm like, this is not more of the same. I've learned a lot about processes that really work for us to actually be able to communicate and create together differently than it's happened before. So yeah, like so. Well, like maybe what you wanted to share just about where things are going, because that just evolution in your story, and we can get into more of the people power stuff and other things in Tahoe parks and whatever. But what do you like, in terms of just that internal change and where it's landing now, what do you see arising for you? I'm really curious about that piece.
Hmm. There's so much of it. It's like it's all floating around. I haven't really like sat down to put a word to it. But I think what you shared about your mom and how she's softening in that like anxious world, that internal world, like I feel the same. I feel like I'm softening in that, and being thankful for what I have, but also realizing my worth and what I am deserved. And I guess that translates into not just like my everyday life or like my career, but also just in the political spectrum, like we all deserve better, we deserve more. And I really do want to fight for that quality of life for not just myself, but everyone else too, because community, like I was received by my community and I want others to also feel received. I'm so close to poverty still, like it is very transparent in my life that it's something I care about.
Yeah, we're on the edge. Like a lot of us in our society doesn't really leave us in a safe place of abundance. It's weird. It's really a weird situation because we're creating, we're doing things, and it always feels like you're a step behind, especially around rent. And the pressure in that more than anything else, and then all this healthcare expenses and whatever, it just seems to add up to be beyond and like right at the edge, even living modestly as most people do, and still working really hard. There is this really deep connection that, make America great again, just to like, why can't we have what they had in the 50s? What's wrong that we can't have that level of abundance and community and commitment, stability for, I get where the gripe is because it's a true and reasonable ask and even a complaint. And it's like, we know that there's like this huge abundance, mad growth. We see this like productivity line going forever. And it's like, but I'm not experiencing that. I'm under this like thing. What's going on with me personally and collectively that keeps it there? So yeah, I mean, I get that, but you were also alluding to like this deeper level of shift in you, that it was like there was like an expansion, like in terms of so the self-esteem. I get it. What else is in there? Because it sounds like there's something else.
Yeah, I've just been so jaded with politics, with our current system. Like I've been tuned out for quite a bit of time. I think since like 2016. That's when I just needed to step away from that because I was taking things so personally. It's like, oh, the bad guys keep winning and like the little people are being forgotten. And I, spoke about the brainwashing, but like I was raised to thoughts like you're so lucky to be living in America. You have no idea how hard it is back in the country. Or the whole model minority narrative, the American dream, it's only real if you're sleeping. Like it doesn't feel like the government cares about the little people. Their only goal is to keep themselves and the rich rich. They're just so distant from the pain and the suffering of poverty. Like I don't think it feels real to them. And it's so hard to get out of poverty too. I had a coworker
Go ahead.
share with me just the other day that she was crying to me. She was saying that she was drowning. She's 70, but she's still hustling. She's working so hard, and all she wants is a little pot of land so she can garden. But she is drowning in just being the primary caretaker for her daughter, who's disabled. and she is drowning in debt, and she is realizing that she has nothing to show for her life. And so, yeah, I'm jaded, I'm numb. I see myself in her, like, what will my life be like when Social Security runs out, or if I even make it to 70, because the country would rather poison its people than hold corporations accountable.
Yeah.
And I think that's like one of the biggest problems with our current system, is that it's an oligarch that is made up of people who don't really reflect our country or our wants and needs.
So what's shifting for you? I've got like 2 lines of questions that I'm really interested in right now.
Keep asking me what's shifting.
One is the shift around people power and what's landing for you and what's inspiring. The other is, to really investigate your direct experience of community engagement at the local level around a specific issue and how that takes life, how you contribute to it, what works in there. So we'll investigate both, but let's continue on the line of like, what's been changing for you around your sense of the political? And is that really, were you aware of that oligarchic domination of a broken system before, or is that risen now and you see daylight? And what daylight do you see?
No, that was definitely something that I held on to before. And when I was first introduced to you and People Power TV, I was like, okay, it's a TV show and it's about collaboration instead of competition. And it's just going to be like a fun time. Like, this is great. I can, expand and explore this, this career path here, because I'm at a precipice, I feel like, in my career life, where I have so many different pathways and options that I can go into, but I'm still just kind of a generalist and I'm taking things in. So yes, the Jan of all trades, as I call myself. But I think it was after or during the Independent National Convention where it really connected for me. So I feel like that convention wasn't just a turning point for People Power TV, but also me. I think we really found our niche here. People Power democracy isn't about being blue or red. It's just simple democracy, and it's engaging. When I attended the convention, I saw how divided and unorganized the party was, but there was this heartfelt message of wanting depolarization and wanting freedom, and I resonated with both of those. I can really see People Power TV being the bridge to these siloed organizations and unifying them under this new mode of operandum. New, right? Rick's been doing it forever. And I also like that, People Power TV isn't necessarily leaning in one direction. We're kind of playing it Swiss, but we're really the guardians for democracy. So I think People Power democracy is the solution to all this angst that I'm feeling with the oligarchs, right? Like, we're putting the power back into the people's hands. And it is a big ask, asking folks to tune back in, to participate, to be vulnerable and share about what they care about. But I think People Power TV can also re-inspire folks through high quality media, through that transformative storytelling. A dog might start barking. Got the trash pickup coming along.
Great, something to watch in the neighborhood. The exciting moment for the dog. Yeah, and that's like us, waiting to see the trash get picked up, but we're going to have to do it ourselves. We're the humans. So, when you because what's really interesting in, you're coming into this is, we have the TV show, but what has also happened in the time that we've been developing this is the focus on the idea that people can just get started in their communities. And it kind of reminded me strangely yesterday of the Frisbee, because the Frisbee is like this thing that could have been invented 3,000 years ago, but somehow in Southern California in the 1950s, someone was throwing around, it turns out to be like a pan, a tin pan on the beach. And someone's like, can I buy that from you? That looks like a great game. And then the person finally got the idea that I could sell a lot of these pans and rebrand them. And then they invented it. And it's like this thing that could have been made out of wood or metal hundreds of years ago. And there's the discus that, like, you wreck your hand trying to catch that. There's the simple thing that's like a fun thing to do. Maybe it doesn't have any purpose, but people played with balls forever. And it's, in this case, we need to solve things together. There's just a way of doing it that doesn't require much in the way of technology, taking turns, getting to know what people care about. So this methodology has been unpacked, and we can do it locally. Now, I'm curious about your experience with the parks, Tahoe Parks, and what that organization is, how you came in, what it looks like in terms of being a community organization relative to these processes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Before we dive into that, I think you hit it right on the nail with the Frisbee analogy there. Like it's just, we're just rebranding democracy. We're making it very simple to understand. We're making it accessible for others. And hopefully with the TV show, we can make it even more accessible to, all age groups, all democracies, to really see how we can make it happen. So going back to the Tahoe Parks Foundation, so Sierra State Parks Foundation, that's what it's called. They provide professional and financial support to the 8 California state parks in Lake Tahoe. They provide education programs and restoration projects, all to keep the parks open for all to enjoy. I've sat with this quite a bit. It's getting better, but there is this just like semi-ethically ambiguous component when you're a BIPOC person working in the nonprofit world, where my passions was really diversity and inclusivity, right? Like seeing that in our parks in terms of visitors, in terms of staff, the programs and things like that. But it felt like what my job was to schmooze the rich so we could get donations to fund these programs. And then there was this kind of combative reality of, well, the parks rangers are giving out a very police presence, rather than it used to be like, come with a ranger and go on a wildflower walk and we'll talk about flowers and bears and things like that. And so there was one program where we were giving out free park admissions to the historically marginalized Latinx community there. And no one was redeeming it because they didn't feel safe in the parks. So yeah, I've sat with that for quite a bit. It's getting better now. DEI has definitely become more pronounced in the park partner world. I think even Parks is picking it up and they're being better about it. They just passed this MOU, this memorandum of understanding, where the Washoe tribe, the Paiute tribe, can access the parks for free for their own ceremonies, for their own recreational use. So it's a step in the right direction for sure.
Interesting. So it's a private organization, it's a nonprofit that supports the public parks. So public parks are underfunded, but there's a lot of activity in Tahoe. The people who live there, many of whom are wealthy, care tremendously. A lot of them are part-time. Some of them are full-time, I'm guessing. And then there's this is who donates, and there needs to be events. So you describe more of your role of what's in there to just understand how you're witnessing it from the inside. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great summary there. So I started out as their events person, and events and marketing goes hand in hand. And so the part-time job turned into a full-time job, and expanded under the marketing realm too. So I picked that up. And then it just became way too much. So we hired a communications coordinator under me. So I was managing them and the communications and the events, and then we were doing public events for the community, and we were doing private events for the donors. We were making connections with other like-minded organizations, trying to cross-pollinate. Then it just became a lot. I got priced out of living in that area, so I moved to Reno, about 30 minutes away from Truckee, but about 45 minutes to an hour away from my office. And so I became remote. Try doing events and programs remote too. And so I was like driving to Emerald Bay, and that was like a really long commute, about an hour and a half, just to put on events, and didn't feel kosher to me that, you know, I was representing these parks, but I wasn't living there. We just needed someone who was more, who had a more local presence, right? So we hired another events person, and I became the communications person there.
It's interesting because, you know, what's coming across is, you know, getting community involvement and to the point that people will donate requires making sure that it's a fun thing, right? So the events tend to be like these engaging fundraisers of different sorts, I'm sure, with different themes and stuff. What was some of the activation? What worked to get people? Because what I'm seeing in the parallel is local community organizing has the same function. To do this deliberative process, we're going to have people have the time on Sunday or on a weeknight to be able to show up. Probably not parents with really young kids, probably not working 2 jobs. It self-selects for the people who have either a lot of passion for this or enough money to have the spaciousness and the leisure to spend time at it. Similar thing with the parks. It's awesome that the wealth is showing up and the attention of these people on the board, right? But they still need to be entertained and engaged, or have programs that make them feel like it's special, right? And that there's a benefit.
Exactly. Yeah. Sounds like you're very well versed in events too, because that's literally it. Is that you want to get people into the parks, you want them to make these special memories, special connections, and they want to protect the park, become stewards, and want to support us and what we're doing. And so, luckily enough, you know, the venue is the easy part. Like, we have the coolest venues. We've had concerts at Viking Stone Castle. We've had literal knights, like suited up in armor, to show us a demonstration of how knights fought in the courtyard. We've had bluegrass concerts overlooking the lake at Sugar Pine Point State Park. And it's just so magical, being able to not only share this healing place of inspiration and recreation with others, but to also know that you're doing good in a very intangible way, by like bringing people to the parks and getting donations and all that to keep the parks open. Yeah.
So what happens in terms of the community, in terms of political engagement? Is there stuff there where people are involved in problem solving and organizing things? What are you exposed to in terms of like what I'm just starting up in Topanga?
So I've definitely done a lot of event organizing, but I haven't done much political organizing. I've participated in local marches, advocacy days, stayed connected to town halls. The little context.
What are the town halls like, actually? What are the town halls in town and or in Reno? And what
I
you're
haven't attended one in person, but I'll read the notes afterwards. And the town that I lived in, town of Truckee, went through some dramatic changes in the last couple of years, just trying to balance the environment, the workforce, and the influx of second and third homeowners. So like a lot of money is coming into this tiny town, but we're also, you know, pricing out our workforce. And there were some initiatives about, you know, like plastic use, single-use stuff, wildfires, defensible spaces, and so that stuff. But I'm reflecting on it now about why I can't say I was more present in these movements. It could be that I didn't really feel like a full community member. Like I felt it's a very transient community, you know, and
Oh, it's a lot of seasonal, and curious, we have a similar thing in Topanga. COVID pushed a lot of people to look for reconnection with community, craving it, but then with nature. Having gotten a taste of nature, there's this huge influx of people coming to this town and every natural place close to every city. And it sounds like that happened in Truckee. And then the Airbnbs, people getting priced out. You're literally finding yourself under pressure to have to leave town even while you're working there in the community. And that one, that affordable housing one, was that on the agenda? Was that something that people were talking about?
Yeah, that was definitely a hot topic too. And I was too busy moving. I think I moved 3 or 4 times within 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so moving is one of the most stressful things you can have in your life, that marriage, divorce, etc. So I wasn't really like plugged into like that whole movement. And then I was priced out and we just moved to Reno because we were so tired of it. But again, I just checked out. So yeah.
No, this is serious. This is one of the big problems I think that underlies a lot of what's going on is the lack of places to live, this protection of nature that we care about, but then not finding a middle ground at all for how to actually keep the people who work there, who also want to be there and have affordable access for diversity to actually be present and not just become this like rich monoculture, white, wealthy enclave. And we've got that starting in Topanga, and it's a real concern. So, shared houses, I'm sure, absolutely all over the place, the same way they are here. It's a lot of the same problem. And this is funny because it's like anywhere there's an attractor, right? Like nature, a gateway to the park, a big city nearby, mountains and trails. It's just like all getting overrun. Parks themselves are underfunded. They have to deal with this huge influx of people and also make money to keep managing things with extra like private school fundraisers kind of situation. It really creates a condition that requires fresher problem solving. It's like literally that whole thing around the parks begs for a conversation, as does affordable housing in the region, almost more than anything. And what I'm getting is like, we had people here talking about Topanga and what the wish list issues would be. And there's a whole bunch of them, right? Fire resilience done the native way and, having a bike path and more walking trails and then affordable housing. And you just see this list of stuff and it looks all equal because it's all written in similar size words. But how we differentiate what the ones will be that will really change it for people's lives and then to focus on those first, that's the exercise I'm really curious to see if we can get to that and do some small wins for sure, but also do some big ones to figure out and really try to get traction on these bigger problems that don't seem resolvable in any easy way. At least I have a hard time imagining what the solutions are. And it just feels like a call to counsel around these things. So in Reno, are you exposed at all to like your neighborhood or community opening conversations for engagement or town meetings? Is that happening?
See, what's so interesting is that we moved here at the beginning of lockdown. So it's been very strange getting acquainted with the new city that I'm living in because it was all shut down when I first moved here. And so I'm slowly integrating myself into it. I haven't really heard much about any like town halls or anything like that. But now with People Power TV in my life, I feel re-inspired to plug into that and see what I can do with my local situation here. Because I would love more bike paths, more trails and things like that. Like just it's so fascinating to hear the similarities that this little town of Truckee up in the mountains in NorCal and what Topanga have in similarities. And it all kind of boils down to just, we deserve more. We want this quality of life. We want to feel safe. We want to feel secure. We want to feel happy. We deserve these things.
Yeah.
So this kind of also brings up one of my hesitations with the whole process that we're going into. So my hesitation is, who is at the table during these town halls, during these citizen assemblies? And how can we make sure that it's going to be diverse? And how can we ensure that it's people power and not the loudest one in the room power? Because I think your input, the answers, the solutions you're going to get out of the crowd is going to be a direct reflection of your sample size, right?
And who's in there. And this is really a big one. And I'm seeing it into pain. We're already a bit skewed to a certain demographic profile. It's gotten younger though, and where people were really more disengaged. There's such a sense of frustration that I could feel people just starting to open their ears and eyes and inner possibility, their inner sense of possibility. And how we deliver on that is really a big deal. I've shared that the importance of diversification in the circles to be fairly representative mix of who's there, has these big problems and challenges, namely the one about who can afford to be there, already skews the sample. And even if you did a lottery, the people who could say, do I have to do this? We don't have the authority like a jury to make people do it. I don't know if we want to do that, but if there isn't the means to also subsidize them to be there or to enable it to be like a paid thing or something, a rewarded thing by the community, that's why there's often this pairing, or some people propose the pairing with local currency so that the local community can literally say, oh, you're showing up and we love the way you're representing our constituency. Awesome. Here's credits for, town credits that you can use for local stuff because we value the people, the 1 in 100 who are willing to show up. We want you to feel okay that you've got daycare if you need it, that you've got a massage if you need it, you're getting a meal if you need it, that you're getting local Reno dollars instead is one of the ways to do it so that you can self-subsidize the function that we need for governance. And it's funny, this guy that we met at INC who proposes this combination, he's doing it in Tulum and it registered slightly, but I'm seeing that there's really a lot of sense in that. But it's a whole other process. It needs its own deliberative process and people participate. So there's a lot of lift ahead in how we actually get this to happen. And the first stage is just to start. It's just, I don't even know if you have to be the one hosting it, because if you're busy, but you're the knowledge keeper and you're enthusiastic, you're like, I'm putting out the banner to call a leader in to do this in our community. And you just hold the informational sessions on Zoom or once a month until you've got your local coordinating leader. Part of what also is coming up recently was my friend Esty saying, look, if there's that many problems in the community and all the different stakeholder groups, all the different constituents, from people already fighting for homelessness or affordable health care or dealing with the homeless, they're already in the community and they're dealing with the challenge of bringing people out, more funding, more engagement. If we can get them to see that just coming together to host the conversation is going to create a stronger chance of connecting with people who care about their issue, fund their issue, participate, and to tackle some bigger stuff together might build more conviction that we can actually do this. In locals where it begins, because it's just, there's no impediment and we get to meet together in person and we can do the invitation to everybody to participate and make it more accessible and raise the funds for daycare or whatever it takes to make it possible. But what I'm just saying is we need to figure it out. And I don't really have all the answers. I just don't see another way forward. I really just don't see another way forward than to engage this way, because the big money machine is just going to keep doing what it's doing, sucking up all the resources with their special interests, manipulating the laws to make it so, manipulating the tax code to make it so. And they can't help it because they're just like, we're hungry and we need to get bigger and we're competing with the other hungry thing that's getting bigger. So we need to just keep doing this thing. And if the people don't stand up somewhere and say, I think the money and the tax and the things should go here, so it's what we set on the agenda instead of you guys, until we stand up, until we show up, I just don't see another way through. So it's a little bit like revolutionary times where people, They had their jobs when the revolution happened, and they had to also carry muskets and coordinate and feed the soldiers and all that. We've got to do that to do this. And it's like choosing this as that extra event in your life for 1 in 100, or maybe more than that, to show up and take the leadership. That's the wager. I don't even know if and how it's going to all come together, but some really interesting ideas percolating that I'll share with the team later when we have our team meeting. And actually, it's only 5 minutes before I'm on with Kirsten on this very Zoom, right? I think that's coming up. Oh, it's in a noon meeting or an 11 meeting. Let me just check quickly. I mean, I'm like such a funny podcaster because I'm so not like the strict rule podcast. Oh no, I've got this other call with a structure person. So this is what's exciting right now is, there's a certain amount of budget that I have for this project that I'm going to have to cap it pretty soon and be like, I can't do this and carry this just because it's not possible. I'm going to my limits. And it's causing me this anxiety stress, right? To be like, oh, it's too much. But what we found, we finally got in touch with a lawyer who put us in touch with a guy who does like the slicing pie distribute equity system to be able to do that for the whole company from the beginning in a really well organized and structured way. And I think the next move is to put out the call for help, yes, with big funders, but to people power the whole thing, with people figuring out how to coordinate. So less of everyone's time, better coordination, hiring for coordination, if anything, and then really letting people come in and create it together, fund it together, that it's people powered from the bottom up for the whole movement. And that's been a big switch to be like, it's not Scott power, right? As my coach was saying yesterday, it's people power. And when does that really happen? That it's like those political parties I'm working with, they're all volunteer. It's all volunteer except for a couple paid people. And they're not even offering as much, I don't think, as what we're proposing. So, and then this other friend who's like, you have something to sell. This is a program that people should pay for, and they should want to, because it's going to create jobs for the coordinating leader in each town, right? We don't need to pay for venues. We can just go, all the money crowdfunding can just go straight to coordinating leadership. And so it becomes the facilitating, coordinating team. That's who. And then the next wave, I think, will be inclusion after that, so that we really do get everyone represented at the table. Those would be the ones I'm feeling are the fundable exercises to like, so it's as if the wealthy people in the Parks Foundation were like, oh, the first thing we should fund is inclusion and deliberation on how to solve our problems and challenges better for the park, so we don't resort to rangers becoming sheriffs, but rangers becoming community enablers. Or maybe they just do their job of being, rangers in the way that it should be. And there's a community enabling thing that attaches to even the Parks Foundation. Anyway, we're going to have to wind up. I grabbed all the air at the end there, but I'm excited to talk some more. I'm excited to see where this goes. And
I just want to close it out saying that, Scott, I admire you so much as a human, as a leader, as a visionary. It's your energy that you bring constantly that is such a inspiration and motivation to the team and myself, that like you're bringing this vision of this better world to life, and we're tapping in, we're tuning into it, and I'm really looking forward to what we can do with the great, good, positive change we can do.
And I'm just so grateful for the support in a very fundamental way of just keeping a lot of the pieces together to make this work, of helping us at INC, and then helping now just to like manage content, help us get into the flow, and help me feel like I'm supported to be able to be me as I'm doing this. So it's been invaluable and precious to have your support for this, and I look forward to it for like everything that's coming next. Okay. Super. Yay. Yay. That was great. And okay, stop the recording. You know how you're going to tag this one.